This is Show Me the Money, your weekly guide to who's making the cash, how they're doing it, and what it means for the way we work. With us tonight, the boss of the biggest company you've never heard of, Adrian Ringrose. He's the boss of Interserve. Spreading the word about her jammy business, Clippy McKenna, and busy with business as always, Alistair Heath, editor of City AM. The economy's shrinking, you knew that already. But Nick Clegg, the Deputy Prime Minister, told the BBC today, no U-turn. Top priority for the government is still cutting its borrowing. Labour has called for a new policy. And plenty of businesses say it's time to spend more on big building projects, including, Adrian, your business.
Indeed.
You think we should spend more on what?
We should spend more on all forms of infrastructure, be that power, be it transport, be it roads, be it hospitals, schools. Our population's growing, the needs of the country continue to develop, and we need to keep pace and be competitive on a global footprint.
What's stopping you from spending that money already? Because most of this is going to be private money. Why aren't you just coughing up?
Yeah, the private sector, I think, is ready to respond, but it's a race that the starting pistol, if you like, is held by the government. The planning system, the overall direction of travel is defined by the government, fundamentally.
Alistair Heath, why do the economists go so excited about this infrastructure spending? Why do they think it's a magic bullet?
I mean, for two reasons. I mean, there's a lot of evidence that shows that it's current expenditure that's a problem in the UK, not infrastructure expenditure. And therefore, if you want to have austerity, which I think we need, in other words, to reduce public spending, you need to focus on current spending. Unfortunately, the government's focused on capital spending instead. And secondly, capital expenditure is great both in the short term and in the long term. It's great in the long term because it creates more productivity. You know, if you've got a new airport, then you can export more easily, we can bring in more travellers from overseas. And also in the short term, it employs a lot of people. But I think the key is to get the private sector to spend here, not to focus on the public sector.
So companies like Adrian's paying for all of this building?
Yes, or global funds, you know, from Asia, from the Middle East and so on, could easily finance new airports, they could finance new roads, new bridges, a lot of other things. And for some strange reason, the government hasn't actually put in place conditions for this to happen. They just simply are not allowed to build a new airport, for example, or a new road. And I think it's essential that something be done about this.
Is the problem inertia with planning, or is it that we haven't worked out what we're going to have to pay for all these projects once they've been built? Because at some point, we as taxpayers will end up having to pay money back.
Well, both of those things. I mean, if you've got an airport, taxpayers don't have to pay anything directly. On the other hand, they may have to help finance a new road, for example, or other pieces of equipment. But I think ultimately the primary problem is planning. There's just no willpower in government to actually say, right, we need a whole bunch of new projects and we need to attract this capital internationally.
Clippy McKenna, you're an example of another way we might boost the economy. You're one of the women that sell jam, but you're one of the millions of women who are now running their own businesses.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's. I think I'm out there to champion doing something a bit different from the status quo and challenging that status quo at the same time by going into the supermarkets with something that's just a little bit different from the norm, so that it stands out from shelf.
And that's the thing about starting a business. It doesn't have to be a completely new, revolutionary invention.
I did a lot of research. I'm from Manchester. You wouldn't be able to tell I'm from Manchester. But I worked in the library.
Posh end, I assumed.
Yeah, posh. No, not the posh end. I wish it was. And I did a lot of research and realised there was a gap in the market for a higher fruit content product that also had a story to it. It's obviously my story. It started with 2 apple trees in my back garden in Sale and a fascination for hair clips, hence the nickname Clippy. That I wanted that product to sit on the shelf and be able to tell consumers what you could do with it, which doesn't happen and never has happened until I came along.
Alistair, isn't this what the government says it wants more of? We've had that review by Lord Young, we had the review by Lord Heseltine. All those lords are leaping, saying we need more entrepreneurs.
And absolutely, and that's absolutely the right thing to do. And what we always see in recessions is that we actually do see more people deciding, look, they've got to give it a go on their own, they can't wait for someone to give them that great opportunity.
No, we saw that in the 70s, go out and find it. Yeah,
yes, I mean, Bill Gates set up Microsoft in the 70s recession, which was awful. So we need far more entrepreneurs, we need more people like you, and we need them to innovate, to find new ways of doing things, cheaper, more efficiently and so on. And that's how in the long run you're going to create a more prosperous society.
That's the only way we're going to build ourselves out of recession, is for guys like me, so from a small, medium enterprise, to be able to screw them on, go out and sell product or sell a service, obviously.
But the key is that you must grow and you need to become big, not just stay small. I think
you can't stay small. You have to it's boom or bust, basically.
Yes, bad news for you is that they've just written you out of history now.
Well, I think innovation isn't restricted to small businesses. I think big businesses need to innovate and constantly evolve. And of course, a business like mine is actually a collection of medium and small sized businesses. We've been a startup in Saudi Arabia in the last 2-3 years, come to quite a big business position there from absolutely nothing. So the key is innovation, having good ideas and taking them to market in a way that works.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Time now for Boom or Bust. It's our quick dive into the pool of stories that the judges gave nul point. Starting in Venice, the gondolas, the cornettos, the smell, all celebrated in the 17-day Venice Carnival, where the waterways get overrun with parades of traditional Venetian dress and, as we can see from these pictures, some dress which is perhaps not so traditional. Fashion, hair today, gone tomorrow. These designs are all made from human hair. The cuttings are on display at Paris's Haute Couture Week, or as they were calling it, Haute Coiffure. And it's always a dog-eat-dog world in business, so how do you relieve the stress? You do it with dog yoga, of course. These pups in Hong Kong lie calmly as their paws are moved into different positions by their owners, who are themselves doing a spot of yoga. The most popular position, it is, of course, the downward dog. So, Clippy, let's talk about Venice and those lovely pictures. Come on, we'll get to the dog in a minute. In Venice, we saw them putting on a good show, and in business, that's important, especially if you're building up a new business and you've not got the money for TV and you've not got the money for focus groups.
No, the thing is that you can't shout as loud as the big guys of this world, like PepsiCo, Walkers. You can't shout as loud as those. So you have to do something a bit differently. So I tend to go down the route of a bit of guerrilla marketing. See something that I want to attack, run down the hill, do something I'm going to do in there, and then back up again, and then peruse, see what else is going to come along, and then go for it again. And that's the only way we've been able to survive what we have in the last 2 years of being in the likes of the supermarkets of the UK.
But some traditional things alongside that, of course. You have Twitter, which everyone does.
Yeah,
now,
Twitter, social
Facebook,
media, promotions in
But because
store,
everyone's
that kind of
doing
thing.
it, you can't do it just the same old way.
And because everyone else is doing it, you have to do it your way, and my way is to be about me. So the whole company is about me showing you that I'm a woman, I'm on my own. Obviously I work with my fiance, but I'm just a normal, everyday mum. I take my daughter to nursery, I come home, I work.
This is all part of the marketing pitch.
This is the whole part of the brand, is to speak differently from how others are speaking.
And you have been known to accost shoppers in the supermarket in
I
I thought was a worrying development.
It's a worrying development. I think one day I'm going to be escorted out of Tesco's.
Alistair Heath, you've not been assaulted in the supermarket by
Not yet.
Clippy, not quite.
Jam and then
But you
see what
know, as someone who set up a business against a very, very powerful competitor with a world-known brand name, some of that will chime with you.
Yes, I mean, in the newspaper industry, for example, there was room for new entrants, free newspapers, and they shock a lot of the incumbents who thought they'd failed. And that, I think, is one of the big lessons. The lesson is, even in established industries, even when you think, no one can come into this market, there's
always
often room for innovation.
definitely.
If you have a completely new business model and you undercut your competitors in some way, give something very different.
And you are the example of that innovation. What was it you did that they weren't doing before?
And I think we did several things. I mean, the first, obviously, was we're a free newspaper, while the others charged quite a lot of money. But the second was we're very targeted on our market, which was, in our case, London's financial and business community, all the professionals who work in the city and all around London in business. And the other newspapers have become very, very global. They decided that, business was so global that you didn't need to bother talking about local issues and local
but
companies.
sometimes
and so
you miss something out, so
exactly.
being local.
So that's one of the
definitely.
things we did, and we tried to create more of a community of readers. And so, those are the kinds of innovations you can do and succeed in, even in crowded businesses.
Adrian, where's the innovation in your business? A much bigger enterprise with places all around the world and 50-odd thousand workers.
Yeah, we're solving problems for our customers every day on site. We've got 50,000 people, as you say. All of them can contribute to that. One of our values in our business, a bit like Clippy saying her brand is about her, ours is about our values, and one of those is that everyone has a voice. So, we need to listen to people's ideas. So the innovation comes bottom up, and it can be incremental. we're strategically expanding. We're in new markets, welfare, health. We're expanding in the Middle East. So I think innovation can come in any size, shape or form, but certainly it's alive and well in a business the size of ours.
But not quite gone to the extent of dog yoga.
Not quite dog yoga. I'm a little concerned that see if my dog's up and watching that, she'd have probably gone bonkers at the TV screen if she's seen that. But
there's big pet owners complaining across the country. Why are you giggling so much at these poor dogs?
I just think it's funny. Dog yoga. I mean, come on.
They liked it. They were getting a bit of attention, a bit of a tickle under the chin.
My dog would just be like, well, don't you do that to me every day anyway? Give me a little cuddle. I love cuddles, by the way.
We're getting that message. Right, let's talk a little bit more about your business, Adrian. And you were talking about the move into the public sector. You're there already, of course, a private business providing services for the public. You know what the criticism is of this, that when things go wrong, we as taxpayers get all the risk, we get all the pain. When things go right, you get all the reward. That can't be a fair distribution of risk and responsibility.
Nor is it a reflection of businesses as we see it. We try and do a good job, and we would like to earn a fair rate of return for that, but we take risk. We expect only to be paid for what we're successful at delivering, be that getting people back to work or in other sectors.
How could you look at the public sector as a source of more contracts, of more income, at a time when spending in the public sector is being constricted?
Well, the public sector, the task facing the public sector is only getting bigger. They need to work more efficiently, more effectively, and organisations like mine, with the sort of skills we have in getting things done more efficiently, on focusing on productivity as well as on quality, I think are part of the solution to that particular challenge.
And you think there should be more private companies doing this sort of work, not fewer?
I think that markets generally create competition, create choice and create better service, and at the end of the day as taxpayers, what I think we all want from our public services is a better service.
So what are you and the other companies in your industry going to do to change that public perception that you're all a rip-off, that you leave us all with the risk?
Well, I think we just need to do a good job and be consistent and be transparent in the way that we do the job that we do. And one of the advantages of contracts being put in place is that it means you're measuring things and you're trading in facts rather than in sort of perceptions of service quality. So I think we can stand up and be candid and say we do a good job.
One big change that's looming for every business and every industry is that we are a society that's getting older. More older people, living longer, having more fulfilling lives. And what a good thing that is too. But it creates challenges and it creates opportunity.
It does. It creates all sorts of opportunities. It means the way that healthcare is delivered will need to change. It means that there'll be more leisure time, which places different demands on infrastructure. People want to spend and are able to spend much longer and more fulfilling lives. So yes, it's a constant change.
But it means that there is a growing market for care of the elderly, particularly when they become infirm. The change there is away from council-provided services in care homes towards what?
Well, I think across health, right across the age spectrum, the move is towards care in the home rather than care in an institution, be that a hospital or an old folks home.
But how can you deliver that and make sure it's still the same standard, both of care and of dignity?
Yeah, well, I think that's about quality. It's about the quality of management. It's about the quality of training and investment in the people that are going into people's homes and the trust that they can engender with the customer. And that's something that we're trying to develop into.
Starbucks is back in the news today about its tax affairs. Does your company use any tax avoidance schemes?
No, we're pretty transparent. We earn a lot of money in the UK and we pay a lot of tax in the UK.
So no funny loans that are designed just to keep your tax bill down?
No, we're far more simple than that, I'm afraid.
No licensing agreements with offshore
very
companies?
Transparent.
When you see other companies do that, do you think, gosh, I wish we'd thought of that?
No, I think tax, whilst nobody likes paying tax, it's part of being a good corporate citizen, is putting something back into the system. And I suppose as a company that trades a lot with the government raises its finances from tax, there is some self-interest in that for us as well.
Alistair Heath, just to bring you in for a thought on this one, is the business attitude towards tax changing in the wake of the Starbucks affair?
I don't think so. I think the government's attitude towards tax systems should change. I think there needs to be revolution in the tax system to have a much simpler, much more transparent tax system that actually raises money in a fair way and that doesn't create these massive loopholes that people, at the moment you've got either massive loopholes or very high tax rates. I think you just need a much simpler, flatter system with lower tax rates but with absolutely no loopholes. So I think actually it's a government's job to reform this crumbling and incomprehensible tax system. I mean, let's face it, even accountants have to hire accountants to do their own taxes, right? It's so complicated. Nobody can understand the system. And, it's so ripe for reform, and again, that's one of those areas where the government came into power saying we're going to reform the tax system, and they haven't.
But the reality on the ground is that companies meet with the revenue all the time.
Yes.
They have discussions about it because an awful lot of deciding how much tax you should pay is, well, not quite guesswork, but there are approximations.
Yes, I mean that's part of the problem. Part of the complexity of the system means that it's not completely black and white the way it should be. Now, no tax system in a complex society would be completely easy and simple, but we've got tens and tens of thousands of pages in our tax system. That's much too complicated.
Also, thank you. Women entrepreneurs earn more money than men. That is the interesting news that has emerged today. It's according to a report by Barclays. So does that tell us that equality is finally here, that it's time to tear up the equal pay laws? Clippy, is it? Is equality here?
I don't think so. I think it's. I think everyone is in it for themselves. I think you have to go out and find what it is that you want to do, and if it's something that's, like for instance, for my business, I pay myself at the minimum wage because I put everything back into the business in order to survive, in order to stay on that supermarket shelf. But I do agree with what's come out today, although it might be a very small number that's been discussed from the results that were in the Times today, that I think when you're a woman in business and you've done something good, I would reward myself with that. And I can see how it comes about, how it happens.
Yes, just fleshing out some of the detail. This was a survey of fairly well-off entrepreneurs, and it showed that women who owned their own business and who were taking home around £300,000 a year were better paid than men
not necessarily
who owned
doing
their
that.
own business. Are you in that catchment group?
No. Far from it.
How close are you to it?
Not very. A long way.
But at some point, that's the aspiration.
At some point, I would like it to be like that. At some point, I would like to be able to have my product in every home in the UK. But that can only come from being lean and mean and actively going out and doing something different, just like what we were saying before.
Because you said you pay yourself the minimum wage. Some people might think, well, what on earth is the point in being a business if that's all you're getting?
Because one day, the world is my oyster.
Delayed gratification, basically. I mean, you own the business, so
but that's very old-fashioned.
Exactly.
But there's something good about that. But I think there's more equality than we realise now, increasingly, especially among younger people. And there's quite a lot of studies and evidence that shows that for people in their 20s and 30s, women earn the same as men, in some cases earn more than men, increasingly. Women are very, very well educated and so on. So it depends on the age group and depends on the industry.
Pay policy in your company, is it gender blind?
It is gender blind. We have a lot of women. It's true, though, as we go up through the organisation, it becomes more male dominated. That's something I'd like to see change. And what I'm about in Interserve is trying to get those pathways for women and for other aspects of diversity to be more representative at the top of the organisation in years to come.
Because sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think it is for women to stand up for what they believe in, though. If you think that you can do that job better, then you should be going to your boss and you should be saying the reasons why.
But they don't.
And that's I think that's the problem, and obviously that was highlighted today.
It's a problem, but I think people think it's a bigger problem than it is, because, as I was saying, among younger women, they're clearly paid the same or more than men.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a problem there.
Women are paid more than men.
It's definitely a generational thing.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
And in fact, more women go to university now, more women get better grades and so on and so forth. Yeah. They do better at A-levels, and in other countries you're seeing the same. But I think, women setting up their own business, I think that's a really powerful tool to show that you can do anything, really.
Yeah, and yet the figures show us, on average, women are still paid 1/5 less than men after decades and decades and decades of fair pay laws.
That is right, but you've got to adjust, of course, for amount of time in the job, whether you're part-time, full-time, and so on and so forth. So these figures are quite complicated, but I think they're clearly moving in a much more equal direction.
So you think this is a debate that in 10 years, 20 years' time just won't be around?
I think the debate will mutate, because it will look at other things. For example,
there'll always be something.
There's always something to debate. For example, there's very few female CEOs of very large companies, for example. Only 2 or 3% of the FTSE 100 are female. There are more and more non-executive directors in these companies, but not executive directors.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that gives us things to talk about in the future. Oh, yes, I forgot, they're taking us off the air. Right, lots for ideas on what to cook tonight. Wish you had a local chef you could call up. We sent a very hungry Andrew Castle to see what was on the menu.
A typical neighbourhood, a typical home. But behind the net curtains, a new kind of kitchen table business is being cooked up.
House Spice is personalising the takeaway business, offering home-cooked food direct from the ovens of professional chefs in the local area. Maggie McGee has begun delivering from her kitchen.
So Maggie, this is a domestic kitchen, but it's also a place of business.
It is a dream for me, really. It's like you've got all this nice space and everything's clean. You're not sort of spending 2 hours on the bus, you know, all that kind of thing. And perhaps working for some mad chef, you know, you can be the mad chef yourself instead.
Simon Proctor came up with the idea after a bad takeaway experience.
You go to the web address, straight away you're prompted for your postcode, and then it will bring up the chefs that are nearest to you that are able to deliver to your address with a quick description, and then you choose which one appeals to you most, and you'll see their full menu. Click what you want, and away you go, the order will come.
So it's 1 chicken with mash, 1 aubergine with green beans, 1 parmigiana, chocolate eclair with chocolate sauce.
Do the chefs work full-time for you?
The majority at the moment are franchised. They come on no setup fee, and we retain a certain amount of commission each month, and they have full control of what they cook, what hours they do. And then we have some chefs on our payroll.
Does the House Spice tell you what to cook? Or
No, they don't tell you, but they're very interested to get everybody's input. And because so many people do different things, so everybody has their own angle, and they encourage that greatly, but they advise you as to what's like the kind of thing that sells. You know, beef is terrifically popular.
House Bites is looking to take a slice of the fast food market, which delivers around 8.5 billion a year.
Could I come and set up and work for you?
I don't know, can you cook?
Not very well.
We get a lot of people that how do we put it? They cook a mean spag bowl, but getting meals out at quantity and quality, changing the menu all the time, they could be getting as many as 50 dishes out a night. It's a difficult skill, and it's something that usually an experienced restaurant-trained chef is better at.
I've worked for about the last 20 years catering in a company for that did the film industry, all pop promos and ads and short films, that kind of thing.
So how easy was it to make this kitchen work in an industrial capacity?
No, obviously the council has to say it's all okay, and you've got to have your own health and hygiene certificates. And my fridge, for instance, has a readout of the temperature,
Right.
so you know exactly what's going on. The council just checks things out properly, and they make sure that you know what you're doing and that the place is clean and aerated in one way or another. So it doesn't have to be quite as specific as set up.
We like to think that we've done it the way they should have done it a long time ago. So, you know, why can't you know who's cooking your food and what their experience is? Why can't you know what other people think about their food? And why is the choice limited to pizza, Chinese and Indian?
If you just put some in that bowl for me.
Yep.
I don't want to be touching anything that I don't have to. See, I do need an assistant.
So whether you can't cook or won't cook, the days of ordering a takeaway and not being able to give your compliments or complaints to the chef may be numbered.
You'll want to dial us up next week. We've got the boss of the mobile phone company 3. No doubt he'll be smart about smartphones. 9:30 next Sunday.